What is happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode, and today we are talking about treble hooks. Now, if you've just started bass fishing, treble hook baits can be a friend or a foe. Many new anglers will take a crankbait just like this one, straight out of the package, and start fishing with it. But you have to remember, not all baits and the treble hooks they put on those baits are created equally. Let me ask you a simple question. If you were in a sword fight, would you take a dull sword into that sword fight? Well, if you wanted to win, probably not. That's a question that seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, then I ask, why wouldn't you inspect the stock treble hooks on your baits before you take those babies out fishing? Well, if you're like me when I first started, there's two main reasons why you don't change these stock trebles out. Number one is the hassle factor. Man, I've seen my old man do it. He uses his thumbnail, opens this up, has them swapped out in no time. I try it and it takes forever. I just don't want to mess with it. I'm just gonna go fishing. Or the number two reason is probably cost, right? I don't really want to mess with these. I walk down the line at any tackle retailer and I look at these things and they're expensive. With my luck, I'm going to go throw this thing once and I've already put $2 worth of extra hooks on there. That's like throwing change in the water. And the only time that's acceptable is in wishing wells. So the first tip is pick up a pair of split ring pliers. Now you don't need anything fancy. I think I picked these up from Bass Pro Shop for like $6. Nothing fancy at all, but I tell you what, they work. Now you can tell they're split ring pliers by this little beak or this little triangle on the front of the pliers. That's what's used to pry your split ring open just like that. You can see the beak fits in there. You just take that little beak, line it up on the crease of the split ring, and it pulls it right apart. Now I'm not a fan of buying things just to buy them, but these save time, and time is more precious than money. You lose a bunch of money, you can earn more. You lose time, you can't get that back. And for me, I get off work sometimes and only have an hour to fish, so time is of the utmost importance. But these are also great because they're multitaskers. Now, not only is it a split ring plier, but it is also just a regular plier. If you have that stuck in a fish's mouth, you can use it just like your regular pliers to pop it out. This can also be utilized to cut braid. You can see there it's got the serrated scissor in back, so you can cut your braid nice and easy. And this baby's nice and compact. Once you lock it together, it fits in the palm of your hand, throw it in your pocket. Or if you're a brave soul like me and still wear cargo pockets, drop it in that side cargo pocket and you'll never even notice they're there. So how do you actually use these to change the treble hooks on these? Well, it's pretty simple, and that brings me into my second tip. Always remember the 2-in-1 trick. You start the process of changing out the treble hooks by using your split ring pliers here to pry open your split ring. You're then going to take the old treble hook and move it right up into that gap that you created with that split ring pliers. You can see how it's holding it open there? Just like that, holding that split ring open. Now the 2-in-1 rule is make sure you always grab your new hook before you take the old one completely off. You're going to take your new hook, set it right in that little gap, and pinch your two hooks together, just like so. Now from here you can take your fingers and roll this split ring around, or if that doesn't work for you, you can take the inside of your little split ring pliers. This bottom side is nice and small. You can stick that inside the split ring and use your pliers to turn those around. But once you've got those two on there nice and cozy, all it's going to be is a couple of turns of the hooks on your split ring, and in no time at all, you're going to hear the magical sound. You just did the old 2-in-1 trick. The old one came off at the same time that the new one goes on. So that alleviates the process of using these, opening it up, taking the old one off, grabbing your new one, open up the split ring again, putting the new one on. You just do it all in one clean sweep. That brings me to tip number 3. Make sure you're putting your treble hooks on correctly. There can be a right and wrong way to put those on. And to answer that question, you have to look at the treble hook that you're putting on. If the treble hook, the eye of that hook, falls in line with one of the points, you can put these on incorrectly. Now, if you compare that to something like this is a Gamakatsu hook. You see how the eye of this hook is not in line with any point? That's very important, and I'll show you why. The eye of your hook is always going to sit parallel to the bait or perpendicular to your split ring. And as you can see here, when you turn this over, this barb is pointing in toward the belly of that bait. It's going to have a tendency to kick out to one side or even get stuck here and pushed out toward the bottom. Now what that's going to do is push your hook and have a tendency to push it down as it's digging. As opposed to like these Gamakatsu hooks, you can see here that when this bait sits like this, parallel to the lure, there's no right or wrong way to put it on. Whether I put it on this way or put it on that way, this hook's always going to sit nice and neat on the belly of the bait. So if I did happen to have a hook like this where that eye does go directly in line with one of the points, I would always want to make sure that I have that point facing out away from my bait. That way, this side that doesn't have that point is going to lay nice and flat to the belly of the bait as it's moving. Now you can also see on the back of this bait what happens is if you have this point sticking down, that's the side that's going to be digging. Now, especially if a fish comes up behind it, you want that top. That way, when that fish comes over, I've got a nice big wide gap for that mouth to stick onto, as opposed to like this, when it's sitting in line with the bait like so, there's just a tiny little gap there. Now that's not a huge deal. Is it going to make the biggest difference if you put those on wrong? No, but it is something to pay attention to when you're changing those babies out. Tip number 4 is to make sure to check the size of the treble hooks that you're putting on your bait and make sure they work for the bait that you're using. Now I always try to get away with as big of hooks as I can put on my bait. However, if you put too large of hooks on your treble hook bait, you're going to have that happening. And I would hate to make a perfect cast back under a tree. They get locked together. You hook a fish and this doesn't have any room to fight because they're stuck together. That fish throws the hooks. Whereas if these hooks are nice and free, he can shake and you've got a much better chance at keeping that fish pinned. So you can alleviate that by going to a smaller hook, or there's different short shank hooks, EWG versus round bend hooks, but that's a whole nother video. So comment below if you would like to see a video like that, talking about treble hook sizes, types, shapes. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to do one of those. Tip number 5 is check to make sure that the front hook does not impede the bill or the front of the bait. Now, like this is a popper. If I had too big of a hook on here and it kept hooking the front of that, well, there's a good chance it's gonna mess up the popping of the bait. Additionally, if I were to have a fish come up and swipe it at a big 10-pounder, my possible PB, and my hook was stuck like that, good chance I missed it. Now, if you run a lot of Squarebills, this is usually my go-to crankbait. You don't want to have too big of a hook that's going to do that. Again, same thing, you would hate to make a perfect cast, have that fish grab it while the hook's all fouled up and messed around. Now you can see here, I really have to take this hook and run it back toward the back of the bait to get it up over that bill. So if it's really hard to get up there, it's probably not going to be an issue. But that's something to keep in mind when you're changing those treble hooks out. I cannot stress enough the importance of changing out these stock treble hooks. This is a treble hook from this cotton cordell spot. I love throwing these, but look at that. Doesn't even stick to my fingernail. It's not sticky at all. I should not be able to take a hook and run it over my finger like that. The fall bite is turning on. You're probably going to be throwing baits just like this, so now is the perfect time to get some practice in and change out those hooks. In my opinion, spending a few extra seconds and spending a couple extra dollars to make sure you have good quality sharp hooks on your treble hook baits does make all the difference. But I want to hear from all of you. Please comment below and let me know, do you have any questions about the hooks? Is there a specific hook you like to use when you change out treble hooks? I'm doing these videos for all of you, so please, whatever you have, leave them in the comments below. I love hearing from all of you. So until next time,